Learfield presentation of the Oregon Sports Network.
And Oregon is going to play in the national championship game. Big Ten champions. Big Ten champs.
National champions, yes.
Oklahoma City bound the Oregon Ducks.
Awesome day to be a Duck, man.
Boom inside. Touchdown Oregon. He gets loose. Fires. Hit. Pops the three. Oh, yeah. It's all Oregon.
This is Duck Insider. Duck Insider.
It's about how to be a group of people that know how to love each other to the absolute fullest.
Pleasure, joy to be with them each and every day. And I can't wait for the future.
It's just fun to be a part of a community that cares, that is passionate, and when we come together, powerful things can happen.
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Now let's go live to the Country Financial Studio to talk Oregon Duck Athletics.
Here in the Country Financial Studio on a Monday, Ryan Milano with you. It's Duck Insider brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union, and it was not the weekend we were hoping for at Autzen Stadium. A big game against Indiana, a top 10 matchup. College game day was in town. These are the type of pivotal games during the regular season that are going to decide so many things. College football playoff seeding, if you're in the college football playoff, Big Ten championship implications. Ultimately, it was good on good, great on great between two really, really strong teams, and Oregon came out on the losing end of this battle against Indiana on Saturday. It was 30-20, Oregon, Indiana in a game between two heavyweights, and I think ultimately two of the best teams in college football. I think you play this game 10 times, you probably split this game more often than not, probably 50-50, and ultimately Indiana was a team that played really, really well. On the show today, we'll break down this game, what happened, everything that went down this weekend in Oregon athletics from Alumni Weekend. So many alumni back in town, college game day, the football game itself, Oregon volleyball, Oregon soccer, Oregon softball, so many different other athletic department sports, Oregon track and field and cross country in action as well. We'll break it all down for you here on the show. We'll also have post-game reactions. Dan Lanning, Dante Moore, Bryce Betcher, they all spoke with the media as well after the game. But ultimately, it was a shocking result, despite the fact that Indiana was a top 10 team coming into Autzen Stadium. And we knew that Indiana had a very strong head coach in Curt Cignetti that has continued to win games everywhere that he's gone. And, well, a notorious quote from him, if you Google him, he doesn't lose, and we ultimately saw that and experienced that, and the worst way for us Oregon fans here on Saturday, because he had a really good game plan against Oregon. We also saw an elite quarterback. We probably saw maybe the two best quarterbacks in the country go at it between Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore on the football field on Saturday. At least going into the weekend, they were the two quarterbacks that were slated to be, depending on which projections you looked at for next year's NFL draft, and of course decisions to be made and whatnot there with eligibility, but two real pro prospects around the country and two guys that were really in the mix in the Heisman race and still are really in the mix in the Heisman race in the NFL draft circles. It was good on good, great on great here on Saturday, and ultimately Oregon didn't execute well enough to win, and Coach Lanning will tell you that. It's an Oregon team that needed to play better if they wanted to win this game, and there were a lot of crucial pivot points. We'll get into those pivot points as we continue to move forward throughout the show here on Duck Insider, but ultimately for me, it was a shocking result, and I really haven't experienced a result like that at Autzen Stadium before. I showed up to school here at the University of Oregon as a freshman in 2019. That is the first time I've ever been at Autzen Stadium for a home loss. It's just the second time that Oregon's lost at Autzen since I showed up here as a student 6-7 years ago. And the last time Oregon lost in 2023, I was working at a separate radio station where I wasn't at Autzen Stadium. I watched that game on the monitors from the radio station down the street. This was really a different feeling for me. So I feel that same level of stun and confusion and, almost the 7 stages of grief. How many stages are there? 7? 6? Six? The stages of grief that you go through when Scott's making jokes back behind the monitor. But it was shocking. It was not something that I was accustomed to, so I get it. I understand what Duck fans are going through, but at the same time, there's also this level of Indiana played really well. And Oregon, I don't think, did play very well. And Coach Lanning will tell you that there was a lot of things that Oregon needed to get cleaned up. And despite that, it was a tie game into the fourth quarter. And despite that, it was a close battle. And despite all of that, Oregon still has everything in front of them that they've been working towards through this point in the season. College football playoff is still on the table. Getting a berth into the Big Ten championship game. It's a little bit harder now. You need a little bit of help now at this point, but that's still on the table. Oregon's still very much in the mix. And, well, we saw last year that there are some downsides that come with running the table during the regular season and having that much success across the board early in a season. You want to peak at the right time. We saw it in college football last year. Oregon beat Ohio State at Autzen Stadium last season. Ohio State lost to Michigan last year. Ultimately, the Buckeyes then came back and won the national championship. Tough losses during the regular season now in this era of college football do not mean your season's over. In fact, I think that they build character and adversity to teach teams what they need to be better at, what they need to improve on. You can't improve your team. And sure, Coach Lanning will tell you that you do want to improve from wins, and you'd rather improve from wins than you would improve from losses. But when you are sort of, I don't want to say exposed, but you lose a game and some of your weaknesses show, well, now you're able to really identify those, and you're able to attack those even more intently. Because not only did they not work, and Oregon goes to the doctor every week, but it came out and ultimately showed up in the loss column for Oregon. It was an uncharacteristic game from the program's standards on Saturday, and yet Oregon was still competitive and in a game, and that tells you where the standard of this program has risen to throughout the course of Dan Lanning's tenure here at Oregon. Just for Coach Lanning, the second loss at home in his tenure. It's been 3 years since the last home loss, and almost 2 years this week since Oregon last lost in the regular season. Period. End statement. No other team in the country can say that. So yeah, sure. All good things have to come to an end. All good streaks have to come to an end. But ultimately, I don't think that this streak for Oregon is going to last in terms of the losing streak of 1. I think it's going to stop at 1 because that's the level that Coach Lanning has been producing and has been executing at here for Oregon since he showed up here in this tenure here with the Ducks. Despite all of that, it was a great atmosphere. And you don't get that type of atmosphere without two great teams going at it. College Game Day was in town. It's always great to get College Game Day here in town at the University of Oregon. It was buzzing around Eugene. It was an overnight affair, whether it was I saw the quad at about 9 p.m. the night before game day, and it was already packed. It got even more packed as the night went on. By about 3 a.m., everybody was awake on the quad. Everybody was having a great time. There were coaches out there. Pretty much every coach was out there. Every coach that was in town. I think Tracy Joyner was the only one that wasn't because Oregon soccer was on the road. Everybody else was at the quad at College Game Day. Trent Kirsten, Missy Lombardi handing out posters. Coach Waz, Kelly Graves, they were handing out donuts. There was so much buzz and so much energy around College Game Day. And it's really cool to get that type of attention and atmosphere back here at Oregon. The Duck rode in on a horse. That type of stuff is cool. Also, all the other spectacle that comes with College Game Day. Kirk Herbstreit and, of course, his legendary dog, Peter, coming to Game Day. And he took time to spend with the Oregon softball team over the course of the week. The Oregon marketing staff got Peter some brand new toys to play with, some Duck-branded tennis balls. It was really cool to see all of the spectacle that came with College Game Day being in town for this game for Oregon versus Indiana. Granted, you got to back that type of play and that type of attention up with your play on the football field. And I think that Oregon, despite a 30-20 loss, was absolutely competitive with Indiana, and the score would prove that. And I know that the expectations coming in is that, well, Indiana should have to play up to be competitive with Oregon, but ultimately Indiana's just a really good football team, and they are. And Indiana, I think, certainly played better in this football game than Oregon did, but there were several pivot points in this contest between the Ducks and the Hoosiers that I think made a big-time difference and a big-time impact in the football game. The first of which was the red zone conversions. Indiana in the red zone, they had 5 trips. They scored 27 points on those 5 trips. They scored 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals. Ultimately, Oregon didn't have success against the Hoosiers in the red zone. Mateo Uiagalelei was here in this very studio on the Coaches Show. We asked, hey, what do you need to work on throughout the rest of the season? He said, yeah, the red zone defense. We've been good inside the 20s, or rather between the 20s, but from 20 to goal to go, we have to get more stops. Ultimately, Indiana found a way to get more scores than Oregon did stops, because not only did Indiana score 27 points on 5 trips, Oregon didn't convert in the red zone very successfully. Just 6 points on 3 trips into the red zone. You ask any football coach, and I'm sure if you ask Coach Lanning, he'd say, we got to convert more in the red zone. Those 3 trips have to turn into closer to 21 points than they do into 6 points. I also thought that the second quarter was a big pivot point in this ball game. On the drive when Oregon was down 10-7, ultimately the Ducks had a chance to take the lead on a pass that ended up being dropped. The Ducks had to then kick a field goal, and it made it 10-10 instead of what could have been a 14-10 lead for Oregon if that pass is completed and Oregon is able to punch it in to the end zone. That's a big pivot point. Those points matter. Those points stack up at the end of the game. And then at the end of the first half itself, when it looked like Oregon was driving, was going to take a 13-10 lead into the break, a missed field goal ultimately then leads to an Indiana quick 30-second drill really down the field to set up not even their traditional field goal kicker, but their kickoff man to nail the longest ever field goal made at Autzen Stadium in the history of the stadium. That is the type of quality play that it took for Indiana to win this football game. They had to do things that were historic at Autzen Stadium, and they did. They did it in the fourth quarter. After Oregon got that Brandon Finney pick 6, which evened the game up at 20, it looked like Oregon, you get a defensive stop, you capture the momentum, all of a sudden you drive down, you get a touchdown, you're up by 7. Pivotal third down, it was an offsides penalty that was called against Oregon. I didn't get to see it on the TV broadcast. It didn't show a great replay. I didn't see it in live time. It looked like on the TV broadcast they circled Blake Purchase. From what I saw on the replay, it didn't look like Blake Purchase was offsides. Coach Lanning in the postgame, he'll tell you that I think it was an indication of a late sub from Oregon, in which Coach thought that they ultimately got off the field. I didn't see it. I haven't seen a replay of it yet. However, that was a huge critical pivot point in this football game. Oregon gets off the field there on third down. All of a sudden, the Ducks are driving, probably with the short field, and they have a chance to take the lead in the fourth quarter of this football game. Instead, Indiana's able to bleed clock all the way down. They punch it in for a touchdown. And then Oregon, now with 6 minutes left, you figure this is probably the last drive the Ducks are going to get. If you're thinking from an offensive standpoint in that spot, it's a must-score touchdown drive for Oregon then at that point. Oregon didn't execute on that drive. An interception was thrown. Ultimately, that was a big pivot point in the football game, is those high-leverage plays in the fourth quarter. And ultimately, that offsides penalty was one of a few penalties that really hurt Oregon in this game. The Ducks have been very disciplined under Coach Lanning. Early last year, penalties were an issue for the Ducks. It hasn't been an issue. They fixed that early last year, and they fixed that through this point in the season this year. It really hasn't been an issue until this football game. And I think a lot of that is that Indiana's scheme was really confusing for Oregon. They had a very strong scheme in this game, and ultimately it led to a few in-play penalties for Oregon. The pre-snap penalties were all against Indiana because the Autzen crowd made one heck of a difference. Indiana had 8 penalties in this game. 7 of them were pre-snap, false start, or infraction penalties. That's the Autzen crowd making a difference, and despite Oregon losing this football game, the Autzen crowd still showed up in a way that showcased itself on the biggest stage as one of the best environments in college football. Again and again and again, the Duck fans continue to show up as one of, if not the best, and I think the best fans and the best atmosphere at Autzen Stadium in the entire country. It was evident, and it showed up on the football field. It was a game that came down to who was going to play their best, and then the battle between 2 of the best quarterbacks. Credit to Fernando Mendoza. He played really well. His 2 receivers on the outside, Omar Cooper, Elijah Surratt, they were excellent in this game, and Indiana's offensive scheme was excellent in this football game. Oregon had it so that they were isolating their corners. I thought Brandon Finney played tremendous on the outside for Oregon, and the stats back it up. However, he was going up against an elite receiver in Elijah Surratt that also had a strong game, and the timing between the quarterback Mendoza and the receivers, especially on those perimeter breaking routes, was excellent. The ball placement was excellent. The timing was excellent. And when you have a quarterback that is on time and on target, it doesn't matter how good a defense you play, those passes are going to be complete. And ultimately they were for Indiana in this football game. And defensively, I thought Indiana's scheme was very strong as well. They disguised a lot of their pressures up front, and ultimately Oregon sometimes, if not most of the time, slid their protection in the opposite way than a disguised pressure was coming. That's about defensive scheme. Keep in mind that Indiana, along with Oregon, also had a bye week to prepare. So they really had time to draw up a scheme. Oregon had the exact same opportunity. It's not an excuse. It's an actuality. Indiana had a lot of time. Oregon had a lot of time to prepare, and Indiana made really good use of that time to prepare because they fooled Oregon in their protections a lot in this football game. Ultimately, the Ducks were sacked 6 times. It's the first time in the regular season that Oregon has been sacked 6+ times since 2014 against Washington State, a game in which Oregon ended up winning 38-31 back in 2014. But I thought that the defensive scheme for Indiana was very strong up front in their disguised pressures, and I thought their linebackers were tremendous in their speed and their physicality. Going sideline to sideline, the 2 linebackers of Aiden Fisher and Elijah Hardy, they were fast and they did not miss tackles. Oregon was trying to beat them out on the perimeter, and ultimately the linebackers did a very strong job of hemming in the Ducks and not missing tackles against Oregon's supreme athletes in the open field. Good job by Indiana. A lot of respect to the Hoosiers for the way that they came out and played against Oregon in what was a tight-fought football game and a top 10 battle that I think lived up to the billing despite Oregon being on the wrong side of it. Now, Coach Lanning will tell you that the Ducks, they didn't execute the way that they needed to win. Oregon, they played solid football, but Indiana played better football. And when it comes down to 2 top 10 teams that are competing for a whole lot in conference, the team that's going to play better football is going to win most of the time. It's just how it works. Coach Lanning, on our radio post-game, he talked a little bit about the win with Dusty Harris, or rather, a little bit about the game and the loss for Oregon against Indiana. Post-game, right outside the locker room with Dusty Harris, here's Coach Lanning.
Yeah, Dan here with Coach Lanning and Coach today on the wrong side of one, and the goal is all still in front of you guys still.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a disappointing result. We didn't play our best, and they played really well. So a lot of credit to Indiana for what they did today, but we'll learn from this moment, an opportunity to attack.
Offensively, their defense created a lot of pressure, generated a lot of pressure. What were you seeing from the sidelines and the struggles that your offense had to string those drives together?
Yeah, we didn't handle it very well, and that goes to preparation for us as coaches. We got to do a better job of that, and then being able to see a clean picture and keep a clean pocket for our quarterback, which we didn't have tonight. So, again, credit to Indiana. Poor job by us by having a plan, for that. They had shown some stuff on film that we didn't do a good job executing today.
Defensively, your guys were playing assignment football for a large swath of that game. It was a defensive battle between the two sides. What did you see that went well and on the other side wrong for you guys?
Well, ultimately, just didn't make plays when it mattered most. Right? We had a couple big plays in the game, but you got to get stops in those critical moments. They were able to run the ball there at the end of the game and really kind of close it out for us. We got to do a better job in those opportunities.
You guys got a long trip coming up right after this one, heading back across the country, a couple time zones. What's the message to the team to when you guys go to the doctor and you head back out to practice?
Yeah, let's be really aware of what we got to go attack, right? In college football, it's any given Saturday, right? And we're going to go play good teams the rest of the way. We got to continue to improve and attack. We can use this as fuel, right? And make it an opportunity for us to go improve.
Penalties were one thing that has been clean for most of the year for you guys, and it reared its head today. What were you seeing from that side for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately our crowd created a great advantage for us on one side, but when we were shooting ourselves in the foot, it didn't create an advantage for us because we didn't end up, doing a good job of eliminating those. So great. Again, kudos to them. We have to execute better, have to be cleaner, and we weren't today.
The goals are still in front of you. Go to the doctor tomorrow, and we'll see you next week at Rutgers.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
That's Coach Lanning talking with Dusty Hara post-game on our Oregon Sports Network broadcast. We'll have more from Coach Lanning with the general media in just a second. And he talked a little bit about practice and Oregon practicing in the Mo today. I walked by and I stuck around for a few minutes. The intensity's still there. There isn't a drop-off from what I've seen in practice from earlier weeks until this week. This is a team that is intent on getting back on the football field, and this loss is not going to define Oregon's season. It's just not going to. Guarantee it. Now, Coach Lanning with the general media, we'll get to it when we return after this on Duck Inside on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear Truckin' Awesome, Toyota Tundra's got heart-pounding horsepower. Tacoma is one rugged ride, and the 4Runner is tough as nails. Truck yeah. Find yours at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by one of your local branches today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Dear Truckin' Awesome, Toyota Tundra's got heart-pounding horsepower. Tacoma is one rugged ride, and the 4Runner is tough as nails. Truck yeah. Find yours at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
Duck Insider, your home for the latest news on Oregon athletics on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
There's danger out there. It lurks on highways and quiet neighborhood streets. It's more likely to kill you than a shark, and more terrifying than the biggest snake. Distracted driving claims lives every day. Every notification, swipe, social post, video, or selfie while driving risks your life. So while you might think public speaking or the zombie apocalypse is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward, don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
If you build a relationship, then it becomes easier. If you build trust, it becomes easier. As a parent, you want what's best for your child. To give them the love that a child needs is probably the best you can do for a teenager.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. A message brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
We're back inside the Country Financial Studio. It's Duck Insider brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Ryan Milano here with you on a Monday, breaking down Oregon football over the weekend. Ultimately, a 30-20 loss against Indiana. Now, both teams ranked inside the top 10 still, even after that football game, and that's what it shows. It shows that two good football teams went up against each other. Oregon came in ranked at number 3, Indiana at number 7. Those teams have flipped. Now it's the Hoosiers at number 3 in the poll, Oregon at number 8, and two really good teams. And I think that if you would continue to rank them throughout the year, there's been a lot said about the AP poll, but I think if you would continue to rank them, I think they're probably even a little bit closer than number 3 and number 8, even with what we saw on the football field here on Saturday. But ultimately, Indiana played better than Oregon did and got a road victory here at Autzen Stadium against the Ducks. Coach Dan Lanning, he met with the general media. It's brought to you by Willamette Valley Cancer Institute and Research Center. Better cancer care close to home. Coach Lanning, his post-game reactions to Oregon versus Indiana from Saturday.
All right.
Certainly a disappointing result, but we didn't play well enough to go win that game, and Indiana certainly did. They did a great job in this game. They had a great plan. They were able to create pressure throughout, and we struggled on third down, struggled to protect the quarterback. Ultimately, they were more prepared for us in this moment. I don't think there was any letdown from our players. Our crowd was outstanding, created some penalties and some opportunities for us. But ultimately, we shot ourselves in the foot and had several penalties ourselves, which has been a little bit uncharacteristic for us. So can't play behind the chains on offense. We had a hard time generating success, and anytime we did, we kind of hurt ourselves. But again, unbelievably prepared, great team. Coach Signetti, their quarterback, played well. Their defense played really, really well, right? And they did some things that'll be good for us to be able to attack and look at for the future.
We saw last year what Ohio State did, losing 2 games in the regular season, going on to win a championship. How much is that sort of what you're preaching to your team right now, that this season you still have a lot in front of you?
Our players know that. They recognize what's in front of them, and it's about improvement. It's about going to attack. And, it's hard to go unscathed in college football, especially against a good team. So they played a better game than us. They were a better coach than us today. And our guys recognize that every one of our goals is still in front of us and an opportunity to attack.
Once you're tied at 20, their go-ahead drive there with 3 third-down conversions, one albeit on an offsides. What did you see on the third downs that led to their success on that drive?
Yeah, just you try to have tight matches. I thought their quarterback did a good job of getting from 1 to 3 and finding the open guy. One of them we slipped and fell down. I have to go back and see the offsides. That surprised me. It's not a reviewable play, but I thought we were off the field in time. That's something we said we had to be clean on substitutions. We weren't, and then they were able to run the ball and control the clock. We didn't do a good job of having responsibility for the quarterback on a couple of those plays where we thought we did, but it's something we'll go back and evaluate.
Just over 60 yards in the second half on offense. How would you explain that performance? What did you see?
Yeah, ultimately it means they made better adjustments in the second half than we did, right? And we come out and get a stop, defensively early on. But again, I think the penalties really hurt us in the second half. Some negative plays that we weren't able to create, and I thought they had a really good plan that we have to have more in-game adjustments to be able to handle. They played well and we didn't play well enough. So no excuses from us. That they deserve credit in this win.
Specifically with the rushing attack, what they were able to do in the second half. Just what did you think they did successfully to be able to shut that down?
Yeah, they had hats in a loaded box. You look even at the interception there at the end, you're trying to throw an advantage RPO, you get a batted ball when they have a loaded box, and they do a great job of creating that and turn that into an interception. So ultimately we have to go look at the film, see what they did, make sure we have proper answers for it in the future.
Stowe, what did you see from Brandon on the pick six? What worked well?
Yeah, we're man-to-man coverage. He did a great job. That's one of the harder routes to defend in man-to-man is a crossing route from the opposite side. He did a great job breaking on the ball. We had good pressure up front. Great job finishing in the end zone and turning that into a touchdown for us.
Hey, Coach, for a guy like Dante who's had such a strong start to his career here at Oregon, what's kind of your messaging to him and how he can grow from this game moving forward?
Yeah, adversity is real, right? You're going to face it at some point in your career. It's about how you respond to it, right? We didn't have our fastball today. They did a great job. In this game, everybody wants to look at players and say, oh, well, this is the reason. That was a team effort, right? And that was a team loss, right? And their team played better than us. It wasn't Dante. It was the whole group, is the coaching staff, is the players. So ultimately, Dante's going to look at this as an opportunity to learn from it as well. We'll grow from it and get better.
Dante took a sack within the first seconds of the game. It was the first snap. What was the conversation like? How did you instill confidence in him after that? And do you think that he had confidence throughout all 4 quarters?
Yeah, I think Dante has confidence. Again, I thought they had a better plan, right? Ultimately, and there's some things that we put on film that they did a good job taking advantage of. They had a good rush all day. Where our protection wasn't clean, we can get better in that area. But Dante's a confident player. He's a guy that we have a lot of confidence in.
Dante got dinged a little bit on one of those sacks in the third quarter. Is he okay from what you know, and how much do you think that impacted him for the rest of the game?
Yeah, I think Dante's okay. He's a tough kid, right? He took some hits today, and we got to do a better job protecting our quarterback to avoid that.
267 is the lowest yards in your tenure, Dan, albeit against an excellent defense statistically. What are there things they were doing that was either unexpected or taken away, particularly Kenyon or the air on the ground more? Or what were your thoughts on the offense when it was that not productive in terms of yards?
Yeah, it felt like they had the pin last. They had extra hats at the point of attack, and then in situations where we're having to throw for it, they did a great job defending the sticks. They were aggressive. Again, I think they're really well coached. They won the 50-50 balls. Some of those are really close as far as connection and how tight they are in coverage, but they did a good job being tight in coverage. We were trying to take the top off a couple times. They did a good job of being on top when we had those moments.
Right before the pick six, Bryce Betcher got a tackle, came up firing up the crowd. What did you see from him and some of your leaders today in a situation where you're chasing the game for parts of it?
Yeah, I think these guys played till the end, and there were some moments that we made some great plays, and there's some moments where we didn't make the play that was necessary in the play we're supposed to make. So those will be opportunities for us to tag. But Bryce always leads. He led all the way throughout the game. Never wavered. But again, you let a team be in position like they were to have success, and you don't create enough positive when you have the opportunity, you're going to end up coming on the short end of the stick.
At Penn State, you credited your team for finding ways to overcome adversity. Do you feel like mentally, at least this team was in the same mindset? They just X and O's, Y's just didn't work out, or was that missing?
I don't think anybody in the organization did the best that they're capable of today, myself included. It starts with me. And I thought their plan was better and ours wasn't. There's some moments going back early in the game that, I'm already saying, okay, we handled this wrong and didn't put our guys in position to have success. But that'll be something we can go improve. Like I said, I thought our players played hard. But there's a moment there when you're not having success on offense that you have some self-doubt that's going to set in. It's something that we'll have to attack and make sure that we have a great plan for in the future.
I wanted to get your thoughts on the final series in the first half of it. What was the thinking on the third down run play, and was there like a hesitation? Did you consider going for it on fourth there? Or what was
No, I think we wanted to take points there. That's a kick that Atkins has made a lot of times. We felt, if you go back and look at it, and again, I have to go see it, but we felt like we had a really advantageous run look, and we were just a cut away from making that into an explosive play. If it was tight, if it was 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, it might have been a go. But ultimately felt like taking the points there was the right thing to do, and we just didn't make the kick.
A big game for Surratt today and able to make plays in some big moments as well. Just what did you think of the matchup between him and your corners today?
Yeah, I felt like we were a little loose in coverage. We were soft at times. We got to do a better job playing catch when we're playing off, and I think that's a really hard technique to play. So they did a good job taking advantage of it, and we didn't get enough work on it, in the week to have success. But he's a really good wideout. Mendoza threw the ball really, really well to him and was able to find it, and then ultimately our rush didn't necessarily get home. They had a batted ball that mattered there at the end. I think we had one in the game. We got to get more batted balls and more impact on the quarterback.
Coach, you keep referencing things that you thought you could have done better in this game. So what do you think you could have done better in this game?
Yeah, ultimately I don't think our plan was great. At times we played well defensively. We had some short fields, but ultimately we didn't stop the run when it mattered most. We got to have a better plan to stop the run there at the end of the game. Didn't do a good job contesting balls, defensively. Third down, we weren't good on offense, and we got to be able to avoid, third down. We had some positive runs on certain schemes, and then there were some really negative runs. You can't take negatives against a team like this. Tempo, we didn't handle well. I thought they handled our tempo extremely well on offense, excluding the early touchdown pass there to Malik. But they had some good tempo answers for us that we didn't have great answers, for what they were doing. Their pitches were better than our pitches, and ultimately that's something we can improve.
Jordan Davison got his most run so far this year. What was it about him in this matchup that you really liked going with him? Yeah,
we felt like he had a hot hand at one point in the game, was running really well, was falling forward for yards, did a good job of doing positive, yards. We were having success with, some of our duo plays, things like that he runs really well.
That's Coach Lanning and his reactions post-game to the 30-20 loss for Oregon against Indiana. Number 7 ranked Hoosiers at the time, now up to number 3, a top 10 matchup at Autzen Stadium. And it caught me looking back in Oregon history because like I mentioned and referenced earlier in the show, it's the first time I've ever seen a loss at Autzen Stadium since my time here at Oregon, which started in 2019. We're in 2025. It's a lot of time. I missed the Washington game back in 2022 because I was working at a different radio station, but it had me looking back at that 2022 season, and I remember that there were a lot of different high-quality matchups at Autzen Stadium that year. And so I just went back and looked, and there were a lot of really high-quality matchups at Autzen Stadium in that 2022 year. It started with number 12 BYU coming in the non-conference early in the season, in which Oregon won that game 41-20. Then Oregon against number 9 UCLA. That was also another game day game at Autzen Stadium against a top 10 opponent, which Oregon ended up winning 45-30. And this, I think, is one of the better games at Autzen in recent memory that I don't hear talked about very much and probably should be talked about more. So I want to shed some light on it, where 8-2 Oregon played host to 8-2 Utah, a top 10 Utah team coming into Autzen Stadium. Ultimately, Oregon jumped out to a lead early, Ducks were up 17-3 at the break, but then Utah in the third quarter came resounding with 2 touchdowns to tie it at 17, and then a fourth quarter Camden Lewis field goal ultimately gave Oregon a 20-17 win against Utah in a game in which Bo Nix was really banged up and had a tremendous football game against a strong quarterback on the other side in Cam Rising. The defense was awesome for Oregon in that game, where Cam Rising threw for 170 yards and 3 picks to Bo Nix's 25 completions for 287 yards and a touchdown as well as an interception. The leading receivers for Oregon in this game, 2 guys that had a huge game in this one that have been parts of Oregon history that haven't come up in the best receivers of recent memory for Oregon, but I think should. In Dante Thornton, who had 4 receptions for 151 yards, and Chris Hudson, who had 9 receptions for 56 yards in this game. Ultimately, Troy Franklin caught a touchdown. Bucky Irving had a touchdown. Oregon ended up winning that game 20-17. Thinking about this game and the top 10 matchups at Autzen Stadium got me looking back to the history of Oregon and my time since I've been here in the top 10 matchups at Autzen and how successful Oregon has been in them. And ultimately, this game against Indiana was an anomaly to a certain extent. And sure, Oregon, as Coach Lanning just told you, he didn't feel like they had the best plan to come out and execute and win that game against Indiana. But Oregon's had great plans before, and they've executed against top 10 teams before, and ultimately, losses haven't defined seasons before. Early in that 2022 year, Oregon ended up losing the opener to Georgia and then went on a run down the stretch, ultimately finished the year 10-3 and won the Holiday Bowl. Outside of a loss or 2 down the stretch run of the season, Oregon is playing somewhere near the college football playoff. The early losses, and especially or mid-season loss like it is right now, don't have to define Oregon's season. The Ducks have had success in those type of games against top 10 opponents in recent history. Ultimately, Oregon didn't play well enough to beat Indiana in this football game. The Ducks are still a very quality team with a lot in front of them. We've still got more to talk about this football game on Saturday. Hearing from the quarterback and the middle linebacker, Dante Moore, Bryce Betcher, coming up on the other side on Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by one of your local branches today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
When life blindsides you with an injury, you need a team that's tough. For over 30 years, Morgan & Morgan has been fighting for the people. This season, we're proud to partner with Oregon Athletics. Because whether it's on the field or in the courtroom, we're both determined to do what it takes to win. Morgan & Morgan, proud partner of Oregon Athletics. Injured? Dial pound law. Morgan & Morgan, 10150 Southwest 6th Avenue, Portland. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome.
This is Duck Insider. Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
You say you'd never give in to a meltdown and never fill your feed with kid photos. You say you'd never put a pacifier in your mouth to clean it and never let them run wild through the grocery store. So when you say you'd never let them get into a car without you there, no, it can happen. 1 in 4 hot car deaths happen when a kid gets into an unlocked car and can't get out. Never happens. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Let's take a moment to breathe. Deep inhale. Extend your spine. Remain focused on what you're doing. If safe to do so, exhale slowly, leaning to one side. Inhale back to center. If safe to do so, exhale slowly to the opposite side. Find mental health resources at loveyourmindtoday.org. This message is brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
Back inside the Country Financial Studio, it's Duck Insider, brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Ryan Milano here with you, still breaking down the 30-20 loss for Oregon against Indiana over the weekend at Autzen Stadium. The quarterback, Dante Moore, going up against a very talented quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, probably two of the best, if not the two best quarterbacks in the country going up against each other. And ultimately, Mendoza did play better than Dante Moore in this football game. 20 completions on 31 attempts, 215 yards, a touchdown, and a pick for Fernando Mendoza. Dante Moore on the other side, 21 completions, 34 attempts, 186 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Both of those interceptions, however, came late in the ballgame when Oregon was in passing situations. The defense is different in those type of situations. So I think that Dante Moore's stat line actually a little bit deflated for how well he played. I thought Dante Moore played pretty solid in this football game. Mendoza played really well. I thought Dante Moore, it certainly didn't seem outmatched in this football game. I thought he played a pretty strong game as well, and I think the stat sheet doesn't necessarily back up how well Dante Moore did play. Granted, Coach Lanning will tell you not anybody on this Oregon team through the Oregon program set Oregon up well enough to win, but I thought Dante Moore was strong in this football game. Bryce Betcher also strong in this football game. Had 11 tackles. He was in the mix pretty much everywhere and did a good job, especially in the first half in the rush coverage against Indiana's Roman Hemby, who didn't have a lot of success until the fourth quarter when Indiana started to lean on the Ducks. Dante Moore, Bryce Betcher, disappointed after the loss, but they did speak with the media after the game.
Start with Dante. Can you pinpoint what went wrong offensively for you guys today?
Yeah, on all phases it was, not great, but I feel like overall Indiana's a great team, great coaching staff, great players. They had a great scheme, a lot of different concepts they run on defense, but overall I feel like we beat ourselves when it comes to penalties. Me missing, simple reads, and I feel like we didn't have our routine or, just from the start to the end. So I feel like overall we just kind of beat ourselves and got to give kudos to Indiana.
Dante, you took a lot of hits today. Were you feeling fully like 100% by the end of this game, or where are you at physically?
I feel amazing. Appreciate you.
Dante, that was certainly the most pressure you've faced thus far, probably maybe even more than UCLA, and most sacks allowed in quite a while. Were they doing anything unexpected to generate the amount of pressure against you guys today?
No, they kind of found something in our offense, and we both had bye weeks, and they kind of attacked that certain area against our offense. And I feel like overall we had a couple of protection issues, but that can start for me. Keying the defense, getting the protection right. But I feel like overall we're just gonna watch the film, learn from our mistakes, understanding that myself. I got to take control and make sure I get the protection right, so I can take hits off of me and make sure I get the ball in the right place. So.
Bryce, what's the mood like in the locker room right now? Obviously, frustrating loss, but as Dan said, you guys still have everything you want in front of you available.
Yeah, obviously no one's happy about losing that game. We got something to prove, got a chip on our shoulder, and we can use it as fuel or, be down on ourselves. So, we'll go to the doctor tomorrow, learn from it, and then back to work.
Dante, Coach Lanning mentioned the spot zones and the way they like to crash hard out of those as two of the biggest challenges of facing this Indiana defense going into this week. Just wondering how you felt those out on the field and if that was a challenge for you today.
Yeah, they did a lot of great schemes on defense. There was a couple of throws I missed and by just escaping out the pocket. But like I said, at the end of the day, they had a great plan, and since we played them now, and it's going to be something that other defenses are going to try to do against us because they know that can be our weakness. So. Just got to attack it, get protection right, get the ball placed in right, and we'll be good from there.
That's back-to-back intense games for you all. 1-1, lost one. What did you learn about yourself and your teammates in that process?
You go ahead.
Yeah, we're resilient. We battle. I think that was the big question mark, leading up to last week. We hadn't been in a close game yet. And I think we've showed in both games that, we're able to battle back even when we're down. And our team's resilient. Obviously this one didn't go our way, but like I said, going to the doctor tomorrow and we'll get better.
For each of you, if I can, 2 weeks ago, naturally a huge riding high, emotional moment, and a lot of credit, deservedly so. But the value of that outside of here goes down when Penn State loses in back-to-back weeks. And now you'll face doubts and questions when you lose at home by 10. How do you feel you'll each respond individually, and how each side of your ball that you lead will respond to that over the next several weeks when there's going to be questions about just how good this team is now?
Yeah, just go to the doctor tomorrow and get better.
Yeah, we don't worry about the outside narrative. It's all within our locker room, within our team. So we just work hard and on to the next opponent.
Dante, where do you think you can grow as a leader from a moment like this? And Dan was talking about moments of adversity, and that really kind of proves who you are. What's going to be your mindset entering this?
Yeah, nobody's perfect except for God. Everybody's going to make their mistakes, and of course you got to see how you bounce back, but you guys make sure that I'm continuing talking to the offense and the defense side of the ball. When the defense comes off, even if they get scored on, to make sure I'm, getting staying on their head, making sure that the offense go punch the ball in for them. So just being more of a communicator on the field when things are going bad.
Bryce said you go to the doctor tomorrow, but what do the next 12 hours look like for you? Are you going to go dive into film soon? Do you try and forget about this for a night and kind of get your head straight? What's the next 12 hours look like?
Yeah, it'd be pretty hard to forget about. I'll go see my family downstairs for a second, thank them for coming to the game. Then I'll go home and watch it on my iPad, to be honest with you. Maybe once or twice, maybe watch a couple other games, go to bed, and then back up here tomorrow, getting a recovery circuit in, a good lift, and then probably watch the game again.
Can you sort of take us through the emotions when Finney got the pick six, which just seemed like the jolt you guys needed, and then how disappointing is that you guys couldn't capture that momentum and keep riding it? Sort of like at Penn State when you guys got some breaks and you finally took control of the game. Yeah, it was an incredible play by Finney. That's talk about the ball, and it's our oxygen when you can get the ball in defense and create turnovers. It's a big time play. It felt like obviously that was the play we needed right there, and unfortunately we couldn't capitalize going into the fourth quarter, but that's a game. Indiana's a good team.
Bryce Betcher, Dante Moore, the two leaders of this team on their respective sides of the ball, and they're going to have to be leaders as Oregon now turns the page from what was a disappointment on Saturday against Indiana now to an opportunity coming up on the road this week against Rutgers. It's going to be a 3:30 kickoff for Oregon in Piscataway against Rutgers. That is Pacific time, so it'll be 6:30 local time out there in New Jersey, but a 3:30 kick here in Eugene, a 1:30 pregame show starting on the Oregon Sports Network. It's college football. Season rolls on. So does the show. Not only was it college game day, but it was also alumni weekend. Talking about it when we return after this on Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, we're more than just an award-winning golf course and practice facility. Our events team offers all-inclusive event pricing that allows us to take care of all the details while you enjoy your event. Our indoor and outdoor venues offer you a wide variety of fully staffed options that put the focus on you. From weddings to business and social events, at Shadow Hills Country Club Events Center, you get the benefits of a resort atmosphere and amenities in a peaceful country setting, just minutes from downtown Eugene. Call for a tour today or visit shadowhillsevents.com.
Hey Duck fans, at Country Financial, they make insurance easy. Whether you're shopping for home, auto, or more, their representatives will take the time to understand your specific needs and explain what options work best for you. Worry less and feel more confident knowing you're covered. Visit countryfinancial.com to get started today. Experience more with Country Financial. Auto and home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, and Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Your daily dose of Oregon athletics. This is Duck Insider from Learfield.
Put your phone on D&D. That means that do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always sing with me. So put your phone on D&D. That means that do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always remember this beat.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
When I met both of them, it was like my missing pieces were found. Like it was just like an instant, these are my kids. If you're considering adopting a teen, just do it. Kids need families. I don't care the age, everybody deserves a family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. A message brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
I'm coming home to the place that I remember, back to the land of my first love. Would you spread wide your arms for this way?
Back here inside the Country Financial Studio, Ryan Milano with you on Duck Insider, brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union, talking about the whole weekend in Oregon athletics, because sure, it was a disappointing football game, but it's always great when the alumni are back in town. And there were alumni from so many different athletic department sports that were here back in town. If you're watching along with us, Oregon Volleyball had some representation at their match yesterday on Sunday. Oregon Baseball, they were honored for their Big Ten championship last year on the field with alumni that were coming back. And actually, I went on a hike of Spencer's Butte on Friday, and when I was getting to the peak, Jacob Walsh was coming back down, and I was able to catch up with him. Hey, how you doing? How you doing in the Nationals organization? When do you report? Like, what's it been like now that you're a professional athlete, a pro Duck? So all of the different alumni are in town. It's very, very cool to see. A lot of people that work around here that were alumni in the athletic department. You saw them in their Letterman's jacket over the course of the weekend. That type of stuff, really, really cool to get the alumni back. Of course, once a Duck, always a Duck, and you could feel the Duck love around Eugene over the weekend as a whole. And it started on Friday with a really special Dellinger Invitational, because it's the first Dellinger that's been hosted since Bill Dellinger's passing over the summer. I think Oregon represented him very well over the course of this weekend. Benji Balaz won the men's 8,000 meter race with a 23-minute, 8-second time. And then Deanna Cheritich won the women's 6K with a time of 18 minutes and 58 seconds. The Ducks went 1-2-4-6, their placing in both the men and the women's side of the Dellinger throughout the course of that meet to score 16 points apiece. First, second, third, fourth, and sixth as Oregon won both the men and the women's side. Beat Air Force on the men's side 16-50. Air Force the closest next scorer, and then also Air Force on the women's side 16-72, with Air Force being the closest next scorer. Cool to see. Cool to see for Oregon in their cross-country meet, hosting their cross-country meet, and a strong result for the Ducks. It was a battle of a result for Oregon soccer against a very strong Penn State team. Tracy Joyner's crew went on the road and battled against a Penn State squad, and it looked like Oregon was going to come out with a victory in this one. They were up 2-1 for most of the match, and a disappointing way to finish with a 2-2 draw in this one against Penn State, where ultimately two of Oregon's defenders got injured in the last few minutes of the ball game. And in the 87th minute, Oregon had a 2-1 lead, and ultimately their defender got injured on a play that she was then called for a penalty on inside of the box. Penn State was able to make a penalty kick and tied it at 2. It was a really well played game for Oregon for really almost the entirety of it, but that's been Oregon's Achilles heel this year on the soccer pitch, has been that 85th to 90th minute, just closing it out right when you're on the brink. But again, I think a really promising result against a very, very talented Penn State squad. Oregon Volleyball was also in action over the weekend. They played Washington. We're getting a quick timeout. Post-game reactions, post-match reactions from head coach Trent Kirsten when we return on Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by one of your local branches today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
We know you turn to the Duck Store for all your game day needs, and for students at the University of Oregon, it's even more. Class supplies, jobs, a seat on our board, a place to take a quick coffee break. Because we're your student-first, non-profit college store, every purchase you make directly supports the very community we serve. From working at our counters to studying in the classroom, from directing our stores to cheering in the stands, the people we serve, the students, are the very people who are the Duck Store.
You're listening to Duck Insider. Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
My name is Teresa Barber. I was in the United States Navy, and I served overseas in the Middle East and Africa. Early on in my career, I had a commander that taught our suicide prevention training, and the very next day, he took his own life. 90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. My way of continuing my service is to help protect my community by being a responsible gun owner and by storing firearms safely. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
This message is for Shauna, my mom who just finished her high school diploma. I wanted to say I'm so proud of you for finishing school. You told me it's never too late to achieve your dreams. I hope to make you as proud as you have made me.
When you graduate, they graduate. Finish your high school diploma for you and for them. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You know you make me wanna kick my heels up and throw my hands up and throw my head back and come on now, so good to see you real.
Back inside the Country Financial Studio, Ryan Milano with you on a Monday, and Oregon Volleyball was also in action for the Ducks this weekend. Oregon ended up losing in 3 sets to Washington on Sunday, but 2 of those sets went into extra points. It was a battle of a match, but ultimately one the Ducks dropped. Head coach Trent Kirsten, a few of his thoughts post-match.
So much about this match was we're being tested by some teams that can play a little bit and that can expose you. And we're not where we need to be volleyball-wise. And credit Washington for exposing us on our tip defense and a couple other phases of the game that are just not good enough to win against a quality team right now. At the end of the day, we're in the arena that we want to be in. We're in the arena of the Big Ten playing really quality teams. And we have so much to grow. We got to be careful not to want it before we give them enough time to get there. And I think that's kind of what I'm battling with personally as coach is how far do we push and how much development do we push versus keep things healthy. And we're kind of in a catch-22 of those two things right now of where's the balance point. And so at the end of the day, I'm the head coach. It's my responsibility to get them ready to play. And we weren't good enough. We didn't prepare them enough, and we've got to be better.
That's Coach Trent Kirsten, his initial reactions post-match against Washington. He'll be here with Joey Mack on the show tomorrow. Also, something really cool over the weekend, Oregon softball started their fall softball campaign. It was the sock drive on Sunday. There will be 3 more different initiatives that Oregon softball will run. 2 of them coming next weekend in their fall ball campaigns, and then one of them coming on Wednesday, about 10 days from now on October 22nd. Go to GoDucks.com, find out you can contribute. Go Ducks, everybody.
Don't act like that. Don't wear that. Don't think that. I've heard everything you tell yourself every time you felt different, and I want you to know that you can be vulnerable and powerful.